Waheguru Khalsa, Waheguru Ki Fateh. Many of you probably saw Guru Jagat Kaur's disgraceful video, Yogi Bhajan Kundalini Yoga Orgasm for a Hot Date, in which Guru Jagat Kaur displays her large breast cleavage, adorns herself with a huge red Hindu Jyotish gemstone ring, and sports a Yogi Bhajan tantric necklace dripping from her neck. Now, it does no joy for me to report on this, but it's necessary that Sikhs know what's really going on there at this Yogi Bhajan Dera, and how Yogi Bhajan personally influenced these teachings and philosophy of these misguided yoga people. Now here you can see this class that Guru Jagat Kaur is promoting. She says here, experience simple, fun, and hot yogic practices to increase energy between you and your partner. This is completely unacceptable for a Sikh woman to be doing this and to be promoting this type of stuff. But this is what's happening in the Yogi Bhajan group. So it's particularly alarming for Sikhs how Guru Jagat Kaur wears Sikhi saroop with a white dastar while giving this Kundalini Yoga orgasm for a hot date advice, which is completely unbecoming of a Sikh woman and an insult to the Sikh religion. Now this video I spoke about has since been deleted from Facebook, but not after being viewed by at least 30,000 people. This was the last time I checked at about 10 p.m. PDT, night before last. I won't go into all of Guru Jagat Kaur's sleazy kundalini sex teachings and Hinduvata practices, which I found on the internet, but I will say that my research revealed that Guru Jagat Kaur is not married and has a boyfriend who apparently buys her sex enhancement stones, which you can see an article here, interview, where Guru Jagat Kaur talks about all of this really disgusting stuff. Guru Jagat Kaur says in this interview, so more sex is as great a way to keep your vitality, and you can look at the jade egg as an even more advanced tool in the same vein. This is really disgusting, how she talks about this jade egg, which she's proposing for women to insert into their vagina to have sexual pleasure. It's just really completely unacceptable, and I'm really sorry I have to talk about it. But this is what these Yogi Bhajan people are promoting, what they're trying to get other people to buy into with all of their Yogi Bhajan nonsense. She goes on to say, this Guru Jagat Kaur, I found that Yogi Bhajan, who is the founder of Kundalini Yoga, had tons of teachings on this stuff. I started looking into it, and then a few years ago, my boyfriend bought me this jade egg, which he talks about here. And you can see how the jade egg resembles this Shiv Lingam that the Hindus worship. It's very, very similar. See it there. Now, the really disturbing reality of these types of repulsive videos that are produced by these rising Yogi Bhajan 3HO Kundalini Yoga stars, like this Guru Jagat Kaur and others like her, is that 3HO, Yogi Bhajan's official, healthy, happy, holy organization, as they call themselves, promote and support this Guru Jagat Kaur. You can see here this post on the 3HO website, which talks about how Guru Jagat Kaur is the brightest lighthouse in our Kundalini community. Her dedication and her truth radiate out the teachings of Yogi Bhajan in the most authentic, powerful way. This is just really disturbing and alarming how 3HO, which is tied in with SikhNet and all these other Yogi Bhajan organizations, can actually be praising this woman. Now, these 3HO Kundalini Yoga stars refuse to accept the Sikh Maryada. They're talking about all of these praises of Hindu gods and goddesses here. You can see here this full moon mantras to Kali and Durga. This Guru Jagat Kaur has these Mercury direct summer solstice gathering she's doing, talking about astrology and all of these Hindu gods, which is completely against the Sikh Maryada. And she's even putting an image of Guru Nanak Dev Ji with her very appalling stuff. It's completely un-Sikh-like. She's trying to associate Guru Nanak Dev Ji with that. These 3HO Kundalini Yoga stars refuse to accept the Sikh Maryada, Sikh code of conduct, but wear Sikhi saroop and use Singh, Kar, and Khalsa in their names. Sikhs cannot help but see how 3HO KY teachers are branching out into appalling un-Sikh-like practices like the Kundalini Tantric yoga instructor in Australia, who now teaches Kundalini yoga, while her and her students are completely naked. There was a naked Kundalini yogini photo posted on SoundCloud with Sanatana Kaur's rendition of Kirtan Swela, which went unchallenged by 3HO or Sanatana Kaur for over 2 years, despite the pleas from concerned Sikhs who wrote 3HO and Sanatana Kaur to ask them to protest the photo being associated with Gurbani. The list just goes on and on. Now this will get worse until 3HO and SikhNet get back to Sikh principles and start listening to the larger Sikh community. Yogi Bhajan's SikhNet, 3HO, and Sikh Dharma International must urgently start listening to concerned Sikhs and take a good hard look at their whole Yogi Bhajan Manmat Tantric mantra philosophy before it's too late. I'm telling you that what's going to happen is these Yogi Bhajan wannabes, these people who are following all this Manmuk stuff, are going to take over 3HO. They're going to take over these control boards of Sikh Dharma International, and they're going to replace their Manmut practices there. So Guru Mustik and Guruka and all these people over at SikhNet should definitely beware of this. Now, there's been a former follower of Yogi Bhajan, an Anshan Vikram Singh Meredith, who's been speaking out about these Yogi Bhajan un-Sikh-like practices. He was the first Westerner to play Gurbani at the Harmandir Sahib. And I wanted to quote something he said recently about this disturbing trend that is happening in 3HO. Vikram Singh says, "In my view, most of the yoga students will not accept the true discipline of Sikhi, and I fully expect to see different groups of bhajanists starting their own thing, perhaps according to geographical issues or other interests. Many are chafing under the central control that has always been the practice in bhajanism. It will not take much for those who want to practice naked yoga or gay yoga or any other variation of YB's yoga to start their own group. Then we will see what happens." So I made some comments, by the way, my name is Gursant Singh, about this video of Guru Jagat Kaur's, where she talks about this hot Kundalini yoga orgasms. I said here, every Sikh is a representative of the Guru and the Khalsa Panth, especially one who is in the public eye. If they behave in a way that breaches the Sikh Maryada, the whole Khalsa suffers. And Guru Gobind Singh Ji said, "So long as the Khalsa retains his distinct identity, I will give him my entire radiance and strength. But if he should take on a non-Sikh way of life, then I shall have no confidence in him and withdraw my support and protection." This is what Guru Gobind Singh Ji said. You can see here how these people, they worship Hindu gods, these Buddhist gods. They're completely getting away from Sikhi. The 3HO people may do whatever tantric yoga practices they like. There's no law against it. But they should not claim to be Khalsa or use Khalsa names, Singh and Kaur. For them to use the name Khalsa when the overwhelming majority of them neither recites Panch Bani nor wear Panch Kakar is hypocritical in the extreme. Of course, this is a really dumb mistake and Yogi Bhajan's fault for a really stupid decision to name all his students Singh, Kaur, Khalsa, no matter what their level of commitment was to Sikhi. I believe this has deeply wounded the image of the Khalsa Panth in America. Yogi Bhajan and now his 3HO sect are clearly against Sikhism. It is not as simple as saying, so what, we do some yoga. Guess what? These kundalini yoga, tantric yoga practices are anti-gurmut, always were and always will be. It is not their fault that Yogi Bhajan led them astray. Now, Dr. Chalochan Singh's book, which is critical of Yogi Bhajan, The Light of Sikhism, has even more relevance today than it did 35 years ago when it was written. I encourage you all to read this book by Dr. Chalochan Singh. I'll put a link to it here where he spent months with Yogi Bhajan and talked about all of these Shiv Shakti practices that they're getting into. I also want to point out how this Guru Jagat Kaur wears this huge anti-Sikh Yogi Bhajan Tantric Yoga red gemstone. She's wearing it on her index finger. Right there, you can see it. Now, this is as per Hinduvata practices. A red coral gemstone is worn to please the Hindu god, Mars, or Mangal Graha, they call it. Mars being the god of war and energy, he is the commander-in-chief of the assembly of 9 planets. His red color is a symbol of blood and perseverance in human life. He is known as Angarak and the son of the earth due to his nearness to the earth. It is considered a malefic planet in Hindu Jyotish astrology and gives its natives the ability to put their own desires above those of others. So get that. Guru Jagat here is doing is putting her own desires above those of others. This is what this Hinduvata stuff is into. The gemstone related to Mars is the red coral or lal munga. So why is 3HO and SikhNet at least giving a deaf ear to all this? Why are they not severing their ties with this nonsense? They never report on it. They never criticize these un-Sikh-like practices. Guru Jagat has also adorned herself with an anti-Sikh Yogi Bhajan Tantric Yoga necklace. I want to show you that here. You can see here she's wearing her. She was wearing it in that video too. She wears it all the time from what I can see. You can see it here again in this picture. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how Guru Jagat Kaur arrived at this philosophy that she's, and these actions and practices that she's been doing. It's because of Yogi Bhajan. Again, I read earlier how she looks to Yogi Bhajan for her guidance. She's quoted Yogi Bhajan several times in articles. So I want to put to rest this delusional conception that Yogi Bhajan was some kind of pious celibate monk who doled out higher spiritual wisdom on sex. When I worked on Yogi Bhajan security in the 1980s, Yogi Bhajan had me buy these sea cucumbers. It's an animal, a sea animal, from the Chinese herb market in downtown LA. This was in the 1980s, and he personally had me go buy these, they're called sea cucumbers. The Chinese attribute this male sexual health and aphrodisiac qualities to the sea cucumber, as it physically resembles a phallus and uses a defense mechanism similar to ejaculation as it stiffens and squirts a jet of water at the aggressor. This is a picture of this sea cucumber here. And Yogi Bhajan had me buy many of these. I was on security for Yogi Bhajan during the 1980s in LA. And it's just, I didn't really realize at the time. I would just go buy these things. And he would eat them, prepare them. They're an animal, first of all, and his claims of being a vegetarian are all shot out the window. And he's eating these aphrodisiacs. Now, the fact that Yogi Bhajan had me buy these sea cucumbers is very suspicious. Because I know for a fact that Yogi Bhajan was not having sex with his wife, Indrajit Kaur Putty. It was related to me by an Ayurvedic doctor from India, who was Mrs. Putty's personal doctor. So why, I asked, was Yogi Bhajan eating these sea cucumbers, this aphrodisiac, if he wasn't having sex? Now, I tell about this story where Yogi Bhajan's wife came in to see this Ayurvedic doctor on Prus Road at the Yogi Bhajan ashram there. And I was the next patient after Yogi Bhajan's wife. And the Ayurvedic doctor went on and on about how Yogi Bhajan's wife is complaining that Yogi Bhajan was not having sex with her anymore. So the fact is that Yogi Bhajan was not having sex with his wife. So why was he eating these sea cucumbers? For an aphrodisiac effect. Then there are the multiple accounts of Yogi Bhajan's sexual affairs with his female secretaries given by former students, and YB's proven pathological lies in other areas. With all these accounts about Yogi Bhajan's sleazy sex life and lies, you really have to come to the conclusion that Yogi Bhajan was probably lying through his teeth when he claimed publicly that he was celibate. Now, why should this matter for our misguided yogini, Guru Jagat Kaur? You know the old saying, actions speak louder than words. Guru Jagat Kaur points to guidance from Yogi Bhajan in her interview, where she recommends the jade eggs as an example for her twisted kundalini yoga sex philosophy. Guru Jagat Kaur says, I found that Yogi Bhajan, who is the founder of Kundalini Yoga, had tons of teaching on this stuff. So it is not surprising, then, that Guru Jagat would look to Yogi Bhajan for guidance in order to form her twisted yogic philosophy on sex. These yoga students, like Guru Jagat, are very observant and are looking deeper at the evidence and accounts which reveal Yogi Bhajan's activities as related by former students. What do the yoga students see? Well, these yoga students see a powerful and charismatic yogi in Yogi Bhajan, who is sleeping in the same room with his secretaries, buys aphrodisiacs, young female secretaries with multiple accounts of Yogi Bhajan's sexual encounters, constant massages, lectures by Yogi Bhajan on how to have sex, Yogi Bhajan's teachings about tantric yoga, which are interpreted by Sikhs thus. According to the tantrics, the best form of worship is the fullest satisfaction of the sexual desires of man. Therefore, sexual intercourse is prescribed as a part of tantric worship. And to top it all off, Yogi Bhajan paints and draws numerous explicit phallic drawings with the word power written on the phalluses in these drawings. So what guidance, then, should yoga students take from Yogi Bhajan's teachings and actions in the area of sex, if not form a twisted kundalini sex philosophy as Guru Jagat has done? So I hope you noticed these Yogi Bhajan drawings, which Yogi Bhajan gave me back in the 1980s. Here's a perfect example of this, where he's clearly drawn this phallus, and he's written power on there. What spiritual teacher would draw this type of disgusting stuff? And this is what these Yogi Bhajan students look to when they're forming their philosophy on sex. This Gurmukhar goes to India and worships these Shiv lingams, which is all about sexual enhancement. And then SikhNet reports on Gurmukhar and gives her these glowing reviews. Here's Yogi Bhajan with this Shiva statue here. This is how the Hindus worship this. And then the Yogi Bhajan people bow to these idols that have resemblance to Shiva. Looks just like Shiva, this Siri Chand idol, and do all this stuff. And then they all have to follow Yogi Bhajan's teachings too. Well, thank you for your time, and I hope you watch some of my other videos. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.